There's no way I'm going to let this go. I'm not going to let this slide. No way. Greetings, fellow flight simmer, and welcome to the reaction review with me, GripperSim. We're going to see some questionable stuff, and we'll talk about fixes for the new alpha and how you can still get an invitation. But first, let's talk about this partnership between Microsoft and MetoBlue, and what is this data they're talking about? As a real-world pilot myself, the first thing I look into before I go flying is the weather. And you can get weather data, weather information, which is free from many different sources. This is just one source, and this is called AeroWeather. The first app I will look at to find out my weather. So when you open up AeroWeather, you can select your individual airports that you want to see what the weather is like above that airport. Now I have a whole list here, but you can select anyone around the world that's at least a medium-sized airport. So here's Dublin, and there's giving me the weather at the aerodrome, and it's also giving me a forecast. It'll also tell you what crosswinds to expect from which runway you're taking off from. So this data is free. You can get this anywhere in many different places. Also, by the way, you can decode this particular data in this app because at first it's hard to read. You've got to get used to it, but this is great because you can read the raw and then figure it out by hitting the decode button. And that is AeroWeather. Every country and every state has its own Met Office. So this is Ireland's particular Met Office website, and this is another place where I get my data. And if you have a look down here, I'm going to have a look at low level wind and temperature charts. So there's a whole lot of boxes here, and it said this measurement is taken from the center of the box. So here, for example, flight level 100, 10,000 feet, the wind is coming from 070 at 30 knots, and the temperature is -1. At flight level 240, 24,000 feet, the wind's coming from 100 degrees at 20 knots, and it's -29 degrees up that high. So there's an awful lot of information in just these charts alone. So where does all this data come from? Well, one example in America will be the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Now, where do they get their information? Well, they get their information from satellites, ground observations, automated weather stations, and actual aircraft, commercial aircraft going about their business. So MetoBlue collect this data and interpolate it for many applications, now including real-world weather for Microsoft 2020. In the simulator, they have divided the surface of the globe into 250 million sections, and in each section they provide the wind, the temperature, pressure, moisture, density, every weather variable you could think of, including snow and rain, etc. All this data is collected from around the world and entered into these boxes to make up the real-world weather of Flight Simulator 2020. This is Matthias, co-founder of MetoBlue and the main developer for the forecast system. Matthias is going to give us a demo of how his system works. It's just not going to... There's no way I'm going to let this go. I'm not going to let this slide. No way. He should know that us low-level VF4 aviators take weather forecasting with a pinch of salt, or maybe a handful of sarcasm. Let's have a look at his methods.
Now, when we measure the initial conditions, we cannot do that with infinite accuracy. So we could say we measure the starting position accurate to 1 centimeter, and then we let those go. We see both go to the right, which could be sunny weather.
Sunny weather, okay.
However, this small inaccuracy of 1 centimeter
I use a bag of sticks.
could lead to very different results in some situations.
I'm beginning to see how this works.
So we compute
Very clever with the batteries.
many forecasts and see.
Okay, I see where he's going here. For thousands of years, people all over the world have been trying to predict the weather. For example, North American rain dance, English maypole dance, African rain dance ceremony, Irish dancing indicating heavy showers of rain throughout the day, Morris dancing. And my old favourite, a bag of bones on the floor, and wherever they land will give you the weather prediction. Okay, Mars dancing has nothing to do with weather prediction whatsoever. To insinuate something like that would just be silly. Okay, I digress once again. So what Matthias has done is he collects all the world data and all the live data from various different sources, and he is implementing that into Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now, this has been done before with X-Plane and to certain degrees FSX and all that kind of stuff, but it's been done to a much higher standard, it looks like, this time. And in all fairness to Matthias, he's obviously insanely clever to be able to do all this kind of stuff and to share it with us. So what are we going to get in Microsoft 2020? Well, if you're flying in San Francisco, for example, in your flight simulator, the weather in real life San Francisco will be exactly the same, in theory. There is actually a great footage of an approach in stormy weather coming up, and also we're going to talk about Alpha 4 coming out for those of you who haven't got it yet. But in Alpha 4, the new patch has been released, so if you are an Alpha user, you can now download the patch, and it's been updated with several fixes, not only to the Boeing 747 and the A320, but it includes fixes for the flight model improvements for all the aircraft. Actually, there's improved elevator and rudder control, improved pitch and yaw stability, improved weight and balance, and general aerodynamic improvements throughout. Improvements have also been made to the camera views in the cockpit. Also, there's improvements made to over 12,000 airports with regards to textures and integration with Bing data. Control assignments also apparently were a bit of a problem in that people were trying to save their control inputs, their controllers, and it just wouldn't save. So every time they went back into the alpha, they had to reset all their controls, and that's apparently been fixed now. With regards to those of you who are still waiting to get your alpha invitations, they're sending out another lot today, and they'll already have been sent out by the time you see this video. Well, it does take 1 or 2 days, I think, after, so give it a few days, and if you haven't received it, you may get it the next few days during the week, I would imagine. Those of you who haven't got it, well, you know what, you've got a lot to look forward to, and it's going to be pretty impressive, and it's looking pretty good. They seem to be making an awful lot of improvements. I can't help but joke about forecasting because, well, back in the day when I first started instructing, the weather would be forecast to be horrific, let's say, on a Saturday. So the Friday night we'd all go out and get twisted. Now, I can't work with a hangover, so I was pretty sure there'd be no flying because of the bad weather forecast for the next day. And sure enough, I got out of bed and the weather was absolutely spotlessly sunny and it was perfect. And of course, I couldn't work that day. So from then on out, I never went out in the piss and let everyone else go out in the piss. And they'd come in, they couldn't work, and I'd be the only one flying. And then they'd come in the next day and they'd say, how did you know that the weather was good? And I'd get a bunch of twigs and throw them at their feet and say, that's how I forecast the weather. Back in the day, we used to use a bunch of sticks to predict the weather, and you bring them on the table and they tell you the weather. But they don't tell you the Q and H. They don't tell you the pressure setting of the day. So let's try Matthias's way. With a handful of batteries. Yes, let's have a look. Yeah, okay, that's changing there. Yeah, okay, great. So the winds, I can tell from this, are 040 at 13 knots. The visibility is 10k or more. Few clouds at 800 feet. Few at 1800 feet with embedded CBs. The temperature is 12. The dew point is 11. And the Q and H it has is 1026. So that's how you show the weather.